Hey everyone, and welcome to week 2. It looks like everybody at least got engaged in some part of the week 1 work. So I heard from most of you on the actual survey, and most of you had posted in the discussion. Make sure that you also, if you haven't, just include your introduction video. That way students who haven't met you can at least get to see what you look like. It helps sometimes when we're doing peer reviews or sharing our projects with each other to at least know who we're working with and get to know each other. So week 2, you're going to engage in some more just kind of looking at global STEM and how does STEM show up in other places. How does that compare to STEM in the United States, particularly around diversity? And so this week you will have a discussion, a graded discussion that will prompt you to share what you have learned about STEM diversity globally, and then that's the only thing that's due for this week. And you actually have only a discussion forum due for next week. But we're going to talk today about your first major assignment, which is what all of this research and discussion is building towards. And that's your STEM diversity research brief. So I have posted the to-do list for week 2. We're going to take a look at that real quick and see what do you have to do this week. So again, moving on to the week 2 resources, there's some good resources on just kind of ideas about global STEM. I want you to continue to do your own research and find at least a couple of your own resources to use. And you'll be required to reference those in that major assignment. Also, I have offered, if you look at the first bullet here, 1 to 5 points extra credit to anyone who finds a really great resource on global STEM and send it to me. The resources can be from podcasts, videos, academic journals, but they must come from a credible source and they must directly relate to STEM education outside the U.S. And just email me a link or a PDF and I'll take a look at it and assign extra credit based on how relevant it is to STEM education. So your discussion this week is, again, this is the first graded discussion. That requires you to not only post your initial response, but to respond to at least one classmate's post within 2 days of the due date. Oh, it is Sunday evening, isn't it? So the prompt for this week is, how does diversity in STEM education in the U.S. compare and contrast with diversity in STEM education globally? So what are you learning about how other countries address STEM and equity? For your first major assignment, I'm going to actually introduce that a little more today. So for that assignment, you are going to need to create a brief. So a brief is not a new research paper. I often get just a paper that's turned in. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about just what the assignment is. So no more than 2 pages. It should look more like a newsletter or something you might find in a newspaper or on a flyer. So the essential questions you're going to be looking at is, why is STEM and diversity important in the U.S.? How much of it is true? How has it been examined? Has things changed over time in the U.S.? Is it only examined in the USA? So here's some essential questions to think about. What do we know about who does STEM and why care about it? What are the barriers and how do they impact diversity in STEM? And who does STEM? What are some success stories? So using your resources, you will actually need to reference these and provide a reference page for your brief. So as you're doing your research, week 1, 2, 3, you need to be collecting that information, making sure that you're copying citation information and preparing a reference page as you decide which references you're going to use. That should also help you kind of narrow into a topic. When thinking about topics for your brief, I'm going to give you some examples, but some ideas might be really, again, it should be focused on STEM across the U.S. and how it compares. So you might look at gender in STEM and how is that, do they have underrepresentation of particular gender in other countries as well as the U.S., and how has that been addressed here compared to other places. So another topic you might consider is how has ableism, or how has STEM incorporated people who have physical challenges or disabilities, and are they represented in equal numbers, and how has the field adapted to incorporate them or not, and how does that look in other countries? So those are a couple of examples. I've actually posted, I also, again, I have the rubric here that gives you a good idea of how it will be evaluated. On our Canvas site, I have posted some examples of STEM briefs, a couple of different formats that you'll see. So here's one format. This one, the brief is on STEM Smart Lessons Learned from Successful Schools. So they, identify the problem. They include statistics. They actually have like a quote here that's set apart with different font and these colorful lines. They have headings that are colored and set apart. This one doesn't actually incorporate any visuals, but you'll see in another example, this one, oh, that's not the one I'm going to click on this one and I'll look at the page. And so looking at this one, you'll see that this one actually did incorporate images. It uses columns, it uses text boxes that have different colored backgrounds to set them apart. So things that you want to really also think about is what are the sections that are included. So in this, for instance, what is the issue? In the other one, it was what is the problem? So first identifying, what is my topic? What is the problem I'm addressing? So in this one, it also says things to consider. How does that attend to equity? Recommendations. So in the other one, it includes the problem, the research and promising practices. Again, how do we support equity? It has connecting to real world experiences, examples, recommendations. So 3 important parts I would say that need to be in there. Identifying the problem, what does the research say, and what are recommendations for improving equity in this area or addressing equity in this particular area. So again, some examples. You can go to these websites too. These have multiple briefs. It might give you an idea of how another topic to pick. I will be checking for plagiarism, so don't, go to a brief and basically take all the information and use it as your own. So it needs to be your original ideas, pulling together and synthesizing the research that you've explored. So that is the major assignment 1. Again, it's not going to be due until, I believe it's January 30th. So this gives you time, January 30th, some time to look through and decide how you want to tackle that project. If you are still unsure, or this project just feels like it's not going to be relevant for you, you have another idea that would make more sense for what your experiences right now with STEM is, I am totally open to modifying projects or even replacing them with something equivalently rigorous. That leads you to some discoveries about STEM and equity and how those interact. So if you want to propose something else or a modification, make sure to just email me. We can set up a time to talk. I'm happy to consider that. Otherwise, you should be working towards that project. So I hope you have a good week. I know things are changing rapidly again. Luckily, we're all online, so we shouldn't be impacted going forward. But let me know if you have any challenges that may impact your work in the class. I'm happy to try to be flexible. Have a good week, and I will see you next week.